What's going on, everyone? So I wanted to do a video about this for a while now, just, a bit of like a candid conversation about making a living off of your passion. So building a business in this scenario around photography and also filmmaking, just because I'm going to share a little bit of my experience. But it's something that I've been thinking a lot about. I always think a lot about, just because for about the past 12 or 13 years, this is how I've earned my income, off of video production, off of photography. And there's been all sorts of kind of ups and downs and points of, thinking about potentially quitting and thinking about, how nice it would be just to do my work in the shadows and not have to, worry about trying to earn a living doing it. But especially lately, so I would say right now, a lot has changed in the past year for me. I'm at a point where I feel like I have dialed things in and am doing the work that's kind of the most meaningful and the most enjoyable for me. So I want to share my approach now, but I also want to talk about what I think are just some kind of pros and cons if you are doing what you love for a living. So this definitely applies to, anyone out there who's thinking of maybe getting into photography full-time as a business or filmmaking. But this also applies to, people who are, say, like mid-career, maybe you're at like a point of burnout, stuff like that. And obviously, there's no one-size-fits-all approach. It's really going to depend on the type of work you do when it comes to like direction and potential and stuff like that. But I want to at least talk about this and share my experience a little bit. And, over the years, so just really brief, I started out getting out of film school, going and working for a television show. I ended up being the DOP for that show, is in the action sports realm. Did that for like 5 or 6 years. And then kind of burnt out, lost, a feeling of like meaning with the work that I was doing, even though it was still enjoyable and fun and exciting and stuff like that. Started a production company, video production company, did that for around 3 years, went through some similar feelings, went traveling, started another production company when I got back, because that was kind of my, where my skills were and I needed to earn a living. But really it's been, since that, moving on, it's been about a year and a half. It was kind of start of last year that I took my work like online and committed to like YouTube, social media, this kind of education online to earn a living full time. But that in itself as well was a little bit of a process, just figuring out how to structure that and operate it in the most enjoyable way possible. And there were some points, many points as well, and I'm sure there still will be, where I had, doubts in terms of like if I should actually go this route and if it's something that I wanted to do. So I want to talk about that. But first off, maybe we'll start by just talking about some pros and cons, and maybe jump into the cons first for anyone who's thinking of doing photography full-time. And, the first one for sure is just the potential for burnout. And, obviously, even if it's something you love doing, if you all of a sudden have to do it 5 or 6 days a week, and then there's also, you bring into the mix, the like anxieties and the stress and all that kind of stuff that come with, building a business, being self-employed, what you love doing can very quickly become less enjoyable and something that you might not end up even wanting to pursue at some point. And in my case, it led to some potential thoughts of quitting just from some burnout that I experienced back in like 2016, 2017. So burnout is very real. It can be exciting to think, oh, I love photography, I get to do it every day. But depending on how you structure that and how you pursue it, it can potentially start to become something that you hate. And I am going to go into that a little bit later on when I talk about my approach, just how I've kind of set things up to be as enjoyable as they can be and still allow me to go and create the work that's kind of most meaningful to me, which actually now happens to be detached from what I'm doing. And that's another important thing as well. But the second thing when it comes to cons is it also just might not be the best business idea. And this is going to all depend on what you're doing. Obviously, if let's say you're super passionate about shooting weddings and then you want to start doing that to earn a living, well, that's a really good industry to get into because there's a lot of potential clients in that industry. But on the flip side, let's say you have something that you love doing in the photography realm that's a little more unique. I don't know. Let's say you love like photographing bridges. I don't know, super random. Something like that's going to be a lot more difficult to monetize, and you might put all of your effort into doing that, burn out in the process, and end up earning a really bad income and not having much security or anything like that. So, it's definitely important to think about what you love doing and if it actually makes the most sense to try and build a business around. And the nice thing is if you're a photographer, especially if you've been doing this, or a filmmaker, I should say, and you have a bunch of experience, you can still create something, a business in this genre, so in this photography world or in this filmmaking world, that accomplishes a lot of other things and provides a bunch of value that isn't just based around the one thing you love doing. And that could be a lot better business idea, and it could also then just free you up to go and pursue the thing that you love the most, or the one thing that you love the most. Or you could even go and start, if you are, say, wanting to, try out entrepreneurship and start a business or be self-employed, you could just go come up with a better idea and start like a company baking bread, or I don't know, something else that may have more potential to earn you income and grow than the one specific thing that you love doing in photography. And then, like I said, that could free you up to go and just have this time where you can completely disconnect and just do the work that you really love without the pressures of trying to make money off of it. And, this is something that I think is becoming more and more of, I don't want to say a problem, but I think nowadays especially, we have so many more opportunities than we ever had before to build a business around something that we love. Just, with the connections we're able to make online, the way we're able to market ourselves, the things we're able to provide for people. But I think that can lead to people just thinking that they need to go and make a business around the one specific thing that they love or their passion. And I don't mean photography in general, but I mean being a documentary photographer, whatever that one specific thing is. And then the third thing is there's definitely the potential for it to affect how strong the work that you create is. And this is probably one of the things that I struggled with the most as I started to pursue my work online with YouTube and social media and stuff like that, is I right away thought that, okay, this all has to be built around the one thing that I love doing. And for me, if I won the lottery and I didn't have to make any money, what I would do is I would go and I would work on essentially projects about people and places. So portfolios, you could call them documentary photography. But I instantly thought that, okay, that is what I have to build my YouTube around. I have to share my process and make that work in front of other people. And I still do want to share some of that process, but for me, going to a place and having the ability or being able to create, my strongest work possible requires me to just go all in with that one thing. And as soon as I'm concerned about, I need to set up a camera to do an on-cam, or I need to film B-roll, that's going to pull me out of that realm and affect the quality of the work that I'm able to do. So that was one thing that I had to come to terms in accepting. And I will talk after about, how I plan to fit that in and where my focus is other than that. But that's something that's really important to keep in mind. If you're going to go and try and build a business around the one thing that you love, there is a really big potential that it could affect the quality of that work when you have all of these other elements that are involved now, from trying to find clients to trying to make money to budgets to timelines to all these kind of things. So really important to keep in mind. I would say those are the three cons. But when it comes to the pros, the first one for me is flexibility. That is probably why I've been self-employed for so long. And that's why, especially right now, the thought of going to work somewhere and have a set days, like 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, just kind of scares me because it seems so foreign. And that's not to say that from like a work standpoint, it scares me, because I probably put more hours into this business than I would if I worked somewhere else. But just having flexibility. So, being able to take a day off if there's something that comes up that I need to do, and then going and, picking up a day on the weekend, or working, taking a few hours off in the morning, working in the evening if I have to. So just that flexibility for me is huge, but also just scalability. So building a business, and being self-employed usually is more scalable than if you worked for someone, just because if you're working for someone, you're basically, the only way that you can, I say, like, if you want to make more money is to work more hours or get your raises might just be very incremental. So there's a point where you can only work so many more hours, or you're just waiting for, say, a raise. Whereas if you're doing your own thing, there's eventually ways that you can grow your business and it isn't directly correlated to how many hours you're putting in. Not to say it doesn't take a lot of work, but definitely more scalable in the future. And then the third thing, and this is definitely the most important for me, is this just having the ability to do something meaningful that also is measurable. And I found in the past, doing commercial work, like I said, it got to a point where the purpose of the things that I was making wasn't that fulfilling anymore. And then also you would just ship the work. Obviously, if the client was happy, that's a good thing, but it was really hard to kind of measure the success of those things on like a deeper level. Whereas now, for me, I have found that the work I'm doing and the work that I've discovered that I love doing, helping educate or share experiences or inspire or try and, help people learn about certain things, that brings me, I guess, like a lot of fulfillment and feels really meaningful, but it's also measurable because, there's this direct connection with people, getting emails, talking to people online. And it's just really cool, to hear when someone connects with something or something you do has helped someone. So that's a huge pro for me as well with all of this. And then the last one, this is going to be in kind of the same as one of the cons, but it's just doing something you love every day. And I know that I said that can lead to burnout. It can, but I think if you find the right way to approach it all and manage it, it can be something that is definitely a pro. Just being able to be kind of surrounded by, this thing that you really love, even if it's not the direct specific thing that you're most passionate about, just working inside of this realm is still pretty cool on a daily basis. Okay, so I want to talk about my approach now, though, just with this kind of journey with this online world business that I've been on. I don't certainly have it all figured out, but I feel like I've finally got to this point where I've decided on the things that I want to do that can still kind of create like some sort of impact, be meaningful, but then still allow me to go and create the work that I'm most passionate about without the two mixing too much to the point where they affect one another. And like I said, when I started out with this, I just thought like, okay, I just need to basically practice in public. So all of the work, this documentary, this project work that I want to do, I have to also document that process on this channel. And I do want to do that to a degree, but my goals at first were to make that a lot bigger than it was. But I've learned that, mixing these two worlds, this video production and documenting my journey while I'm trying to also, immerse myself into a project, I'm kind of taking energy away from both of them, and neither are going to turn out as good as they could be. So what I decided is, what I enjoy doing and what also brings me, meaning is just trying to help people out in their kind of journeys with their careers, with their craft, from an education standpoint, also sharing kind of my experience and stuff like that. So, that looks like technical stuff, camera reviews, film tests, vlogs, talking about the creative journey, testing different things out, doing travel stuff as well, but not having to worry so much about linking it directly to the work that I want to do. Because if someone said I can only pick one thing to do in photography for the rest of my life, I would go and focus on that project-based work. I wouldn't pick doing camera reviews and film tests and stuff like that. It's just not what brings me the most satisfaction, but I still do really enjoy it. It's number 2 on my list if the other stuff is number 1. So for me now, I've decided, okay, this is the stuff that I'm going to do on YouTube. It's still, there's a purpose behind it. It's helping people. I can still do it creatively in a way that I enjoy it, leveraging other skills. I can still tie in some of this project work, but I've finally accepted that when I go to work on, this documentary stuff, these portfolio pieces, I have to disconnect 100%. Otherwise, I'm going to probably burn out and hurt the quality of it as well. So yeah, something to think about. My suggestion would be think about what you love doing the most. If you could only do one thing with photography, and then really be honest with yourself and decide if that's something that you would want to involve money with, building a business around, just knowing that there is the potential that it could affect the quality and the enjoyment of it. And then think about all your other skills that you have in that same kind of realm in this photography world. And if there's other things that you can provide people with to build a business around where you can earn a living, have flexibility, and you can go and disconnect and do this other work to the best of your ability. So just my opinion, this is how it works for me. There's probably people out there who can kind of mix the two completely and still do good work with both. But I find, to be able to kind of create my strongest work and that I care most about, I have to just focus on that. I can't start mixing other things in with it. So it's been important for me to kind of come to this conclusion, make this decision. And it's also, I feel like, allowing me to make, I guess, the most helpful content that I can on this platform that's detached from that stuff. So really focusing on things that are going to help people. What can I, teach, or what can I share, or what can I learn and share my experience and stuff like that. And for me, so far, the last couple months coming to that realization, it's been working good, and I feel like that's what I'm going to stick with for the future. So obviously this isn't the solution for everyone, but I think it's important to talk about this kind of stuff because we all go through different roadblocks and ups and downs in our journeys. And especially if you're just starting out, I think it's good to, take some of these things into account rather than just diving right in, spending a couple years doing it and then trying to figure out at that point how to kind of save yourself from potentially hating it. So anyways, hope you enjoyed this. I am going to do a part 2 talking a little bit more just about business, making money, pricing, all that kind of stuff. Again, just based off of the experiences I've had, hoping that helps anyone. So anyways, just want to say thank you as always. Appreciate the support and all that kind of stuff. Leave a comment below if you enjoyed this, if you have any thoughts to add to this, if you've been doing photography or filmmaking full time, what worked for you. It'd be cool to get a conversation going there as well. But anyways, till next time, thank you. I'll talk to you soon.